Audrey arrived early at the Lido, towel in hand, ready for her usual morning swim. The sun had just begun to rise, scattering pale golden light across the water, making the surface glisten like a sheet of liquid glass. The pool was completely quiet, with not a single splash to break the stillness. The slide and diving board at the far end stood empty and motionless, and the fountain remained off, the water still in its basin. It was the kind of calm that usually felt comforting, but that morning, something in the air felt different. As Audrey walked carefully along the edge, her bare feet making soft splashes, she noticed something floating at the far end of the pool. At first, she thought it might be a towel someone had left behind or a stray pool float caught in the wind, but as she stepped closer, the shape became clearer. Her heart started to pound, and a shiver ran down her spine. It couldn't be. The realization hit her like ice water. It was Betty. Audrey's scream tore through the empty Lido, loud and sharp, echoing off the water and tiles. Within moments, Frank, Cameron, and the lifeguard were running toward her, their expressions shifting from curiosity to horror as they reached the pool. Betty floated motionless, fully clothed, her face as pale as porcelain, her eyes staring blankly at the sky. Audrey could hardly breathe. The police later confirmed it wasn't an accident. Betty had been struck on the head. She hadn't drowned. Shock and grief left Audrey feeling numb. She couldn't understand who could have done such a thing or why. Betty had been kind to everyone, friendly, gentle. She had no known enemies. For a moment, Audrey's mind jumped to Betty's ex-boyfriend, Noel, who had been upset after their breakup. Could it have been him? But there was no evidence linking him, and Audrey felt deep down that the answer lay elsewhere. She knew she couldn't wait for the police alone to solve it. She had to find the truth herself. A few days later, she began piecing together clues. Cameron had arrived unusually early the morning Betty died. Reports of thefts at his workplace surfaced, strange coincidences that didn't fit. Audrey decided to investigate. She went to Cameron's house, her pulse quickening with nervous anticipation. Searching carefully, she moved through the rooms, opening drawers, checking under beds. Her fingers brushed against something tucked in the far back corner, a cardboard box. Inside were a number of stolen transistor radios, each carefully wrapped. Her mind raced. It all made sense now. Betty must have discovered Cameron's secret and confronted him at the Lido. In a panic, he had struck her, resulting in her tragic death. Audrey felt a cold mix of anger, sadness, and relief. When confronted with the evidence, Cameron had no choice but to confess. Theft and manslaughter. Finally, Betty had justice. Later, Audrey sat in a quiet cafe with Frank, the warm hum of conversation around them. She held his hand, feeling the steadiness of it. The pain of losing Betty lingered like a dull ache in her chest, but knowing the truth brought a measure of peace. Sometimes she realized the dead speak louder than the living, and it is up to those left behind to truly listen.